Let's talk about Sophie Cunningham. Her latest episode of the Show Me Something podcast, go subscribe, has come out, and she keeps it real about the state of the team defensively. She also talks about the Alyssa Thomas, Caitlin Clark fiasco and what the hell's going on in the league. Like, why does she keep getting targeted? And she also slams the league for not marketing.
A current WNBA player recently used a microphone to disparage her own league on her own podcast. In the case of Caitlin Clark, being a cheap hit, the referees doing nothing, and a league that left its biggest player off of its own billboard, Sophie Cunningham didn't hold back. Despite the possibility of punishment, she called it an unequivocal joke. Before we begin, let me clarify. Is Sophie a hero for speaking? You had better buckle up. When nobody else will? Or did she go too far in making fun of her own squad and league? Post a comment. This is what happened. Sophie Cunningham lit a match in a recent episode of her podcast, Show Me Something, and eschewed the conventional safe player language, going right after her own league. A current player who was still on the roster and getting paid a salary signed by the WNBA sat there and called the whole thing a joke. Players guard the shield, so that rarely happens. Hold my drink, Sophie remarked.
Nothing about it.
She didn't avoid the elephant that no one in a jersey wanted to name, Caitlin Clark. She asserted that neither the league nor the referees are taking any action to stop players from openly pursuing Clark. Defend her. It was her remarks, not mine. We would be incensed if someone said that to any of our other teammates. She pointed to the video of Clark getting cheaply shot in the throat and knee, saying, "But it just happens game after game." Since everyone misses the fact that it is Clark.
Operational talent do absolutely nothing.
She didn't avoid the elephant that no one in a jersey wanted to name, Caitlin Clark. She asserted that neither the league nor the referees are taking any action to stop players from openly pursuing Clark. Defend her. It was her remarks, not mine. We would be incensed if someone said that to any of our other teammates. She pointed to the video of Clark getting cheaply shot in the throat and knee, saying, "But it just happens game after game." Since everyone misses the fact that it is Clark.
She also slams the league for not marketing Caitlin Clark. You know, we was talking about that poster, and there is potentially a thing involving licensing as to why she's not on that poster. But I did get to thinking about something else that made me go, well, hold on now. Diana Taurasi's not on there. Candace Parker's not on there. Sue Bird is not on. If you're doing a 30th anniversary, why are those guys? It's so random. Even Sophie's like, why the fuck am I on this calendar or this poster? Why am I on there? You know, it doesn't make any sense. Why isn't, Aaliyah Boston on there or somebody like that? It's pretty crazy. And she just says it. If I was the league, I'm putting Caitlin Clark on everything.
The part that really sparked the internet was the poster, which she then discussed. In celebration of the league's 30th anniversary, the WNBA unveiled a huge commemorative logo. It was a celebration and a turning point. However, for whatever reason, the biggest celebrity in sports history, the player who drew record crowds and ratings, was omitted. Caitlin Clark is not included. Do you know who is on it? Paige Bueckers and Angel Reese, as well as Sophie Cunningham. They are both skilled gamers, but when Sophie noticed it, she questioned, "How come Clark isn't on this item and I am?" I love that part. Sophie didn't give herself a pat on the back with it. She used her own space on the poster to mock the league. Her argument was simple. If you are making a visual to promote your league, you should emphasize your best selling point. For 30 years, you don't take her out and put someone else in her place. Her comments were straightforward. It's a joke. It's a joke. In response, she said, "Kathy Engelbert and the WNBA are getting ripped up on social media because you, the greatest player to ever enter this league, a generational talent, was left out and you substituted random names." She then shouted out loud the quiet part that the suits disliked hearing. If they were astute, they would market the life out of their stars, but they do music, not, she spat, listing the individuals who should be shown conspicuously everywhere. Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston are real attractions. Instead, the league keeps bringing unmemorable decisions to light while acting as though be confused if the marketing doesn't work. She said rather frankly that it doesn't make sense, and that they would. If they were sincerely trying to make money, they would put the people that fans really want to see front and center. You know, basic business. To be fair, there is one explanation for why Clark isn't on the poster: a possible image or licensing rights issue. The type of paperwork that may keep a player from getting approved gear has been raised by several. Maybe, however, even in that scenario, the league is still held responsible, rather than slapping and shrugging a few role players on the graphic and calling it a day. You ought to go take care of the paperwork yesterday, if you're largest. Star is unable to attend your 30-year celebration due to a rights issue. For a draw like that, it seems that this marketing department was unable to move a pen. A true marketing department pushes mountains. The league still ignores this business reality. Clark is the engine. TV ratings rise and buildings fill up. It's not an opinion. The ratings and attendance regularly improve when she performs, and you can feel the air leave the room when she sits. Reflect that. As a result, keeping her out of the marketing is not an innocuous error. Rather, it is a conscious choice to get less money. Give that some time to settle. This is the only major league in the world that would bury its biggest attraction. A team member is outperforming those who are paid by doing the league's marketing duties live on a podcast for free. To do so, what's the wacky icing on the cake? There's a good chance that music and the league will change their minds. We'll punish her for saying it. To put it briefly, that is the WNBA's current situation. Rather of correcting the player, she is telling the truth. Punish her for it. Now, allow me to get back up and navigate the mess that caused this entire ignite, because the situation makes Sophie's outburst more severe. This all has to do with the Fevers. Alyssa Thomas assaulted Caitlin Clark in the throat with her fist during the Wednesday, June 24th game against the Phoenix Mercury. The game. The referees didn't make any decisions in real time. The game continued without a flagrant or whistle. Only after the game did the league look into the video after it went viral and issue Thomas a flagrant as well. Now for the penalty that turns the whole thing into a comedy. Alyssa Thomas was suspended for 1 game and fined $1,000 for punching someone in the throat. These athletes compete professionally. A $1,000 fine is the equivalent of sofa cushion money. You might lose $1,000, miss 1 game, punch the league in the face, and go back to the floor before the bruise disappears. If the message was intended to indicate that this would not be accepted, it was lost in the mail. And think about what a flagrant 2 usually means. You're kicked out of the game right away, no questions asked. But the officials present saw nothing, so Thomas concluded the evening as if it had never happened. And the consequence didn't become clear until the internet refused to let the video die. The players in the league are aware that the system overlooked it and discovered it out of embarrassment. Of the striking contrast between those two things. Nevertheless, Clark had more than just the throat shot when he left that night. When Phoenix's Valerian Ayayi failed to make a clear landing, she also experienced a back problem as she left the game. Clark landed on Ayayi's foot during a 3-point attempt, tumbled, and clutched her back. Despite a quick glance, despite calling a personal foul, they declined to escalate it to a reckless closeout. The biggest star in the sport received a dangerous closeout under her feet and a cheap blow to the throat in 1 game, but the umpires simply shrugged it off. In the end, Clark missed the following because her coach said there was no schedule for a return. Moreover, Sophie is not the only one sounding the alarm during the game against the Los Angeles Sparks. Stephanie White, the Fever's head coach, lost it too. She told the reporters that they have a superstar and a generational skill who took 2 cheap shots that were not called, and that the lack of action was completely intolerable. When your head coach and your favorite guard publicly criticize the referees in the same week, it's more than a few hot takes. It's clear that the locker room has had enough. Sophie turned up the heat on her own instead of blaming others. Team, too, so give her credit. She made it clear that everyone was already aware of how awful the Fever's defense is. The challenging aspect is that she is supported by the numbers. The Fever are currently 11-8 in the season. Each game, they give up roughly 90 points. In that Mercury debacle, they let Phoenix score in triple figures. Approximately 111 points against a team that usually averages closer to 80. The defense is the problem when you let an 80-point offense score 111 points. Scores against you. Here's the hot twist. The Fever's head coach is supposed to be a defensive thinker. Thus, whether she wants to or not, Sophie is holding the coaching staff accountable for the awful performance of the defense. Performance, which is widely known. That's a player criticizing the very thing her coach is renowned for. She was truthful, but don't get me wrong, that is denigrating the bench supervisor on a podcast that is available to the public. Sincere? Naturally. Are you uncomfortable with the impending filming? Yes, as well. The records also show further information. The Fever also led the league in this statistic with nearly 24 personal fouls per game. They are a club that consistently sends opponents to the free throw line, destroying its own momentum, despite playing mostly off. Over her last 3 games, Sophie's individual scoring has dropped to about 5.3 points from the bench. As a result, this is not a player who is riding high and lecturing everyone. Instead, this individual is in the middle of a grind, acknowledging the league's and her team's weaknesses. People pay attention to her because that blend of candor. It's also crucial to remember that Sophie wasn't merely complaining. She seemed thrilled about despite all the resentment, she remarked, the Fever has all the potential in the world, but they haven't quite clicked. This was not a player departing because they are still in the grind, trying to figure out what has to be done. Her team. She could see this group's potential if they ever concentrated on defense, which irritated someone. Honesty wins out over anger because of this. On the other hand, the fans aren't actually bringing the temperature down either. The WNBA submission was mocked on social media, and the Billboard snub turned into one of the week's most contentious debates. Fans were candidly asking whether the league's executives even realized what they were sitting on following the absurd fine, and the footage of the throat shot viral. When your own players and fans say the same thing in the same way, it's hardly a vocal minority. Weak. That's the space. Since the pointing meme best captures Sophie, it's also crucial to the narrative. A few nights earlier, she got into a confrontation with Phoenix veteran Dawana Bonner and simply pointed at her. When the Fever defeated the Mercury 86-77 in a game, that music was a point, and it soon became one of the most well-liked memes of the week. Sophie's analysis was excellent. She asserted that the technical. She didn't say anything but pointed and was foul-treated because it was the weakest thing she had ever seen. Technically speaking, a fist to the throat has no immediate impact, but Bonner became furious. Given that these two teams currently despise one another, the priorities are self-written. Is also beneficial. There was real conflict when Bonner needed to be restrained throughout the game. Led to that pivotal moment. The Fever and the Mercury have been at odds for weeks, and Clark constantly finds himself in the wrong. The explosion happened a few nights after the throat shot. The point at Bonner was a small spark. When you pull back and look at the broader picture, you start to see why fans are angry. There is a once-in-a-generation. No one in this sport has ever impacted the TV numbers like her. She is a league star and packs arenas. The league also honors that talent by letting rivals tee off on her, giving her wrist slaps worth thousands of dollars, removing her from the anniversary banner, and concealing her face from perhaps profitable marketing. It's like going on strike and then complaining that you can't afford gas. And that's the real reason Sophie's outburst was so potent, rather than some outsider on a hot take program. It was a current teammate and player who stood to lose everything and was likely to face fines for expressing what was seen to all. The building's greatest asset is being mistreated and neglected. At the same time, and people in positions of power are constantly thinking of new methods to ruin their most valuable asset have ever owned. Of course, Clark is the only one who doesn't say anything at all. That's just how she operates. She keeps her head down, lets her game talk, and stays out of the spotlight off the court. This is admirable in a Hoover, but when you are the most famous person in the history of the sport, when the league doesn't speak up, someone has to. Sophie Cunningham, a podcaster, was that someone. A microphone with no filter this past week. In all honesty, the league should be taking notes instead of snatching the. Sophie is the most popular person of the week. The way she came to represent the entire event is almost ridiculous. Image: a guard leaving the bench, and a name on a billboard that she openly feels is inappropriate for her. She is, however, the one providing the most honest assessment of the league that anyone has heard in a long time. The commissioner remains silent. With little to lose, the stars continue to act diplomatically. The energy guard just states it. The main character's actions. The current state of affairs. A marketing tactic that ignores its own treasure trove. A guard who decided she was sick of being polite about everything. A star being defeated without any defense, and a defense that is being burned without any answers. Sophie said what a lot of people had been thinking. Even though she knew it may be expensive, that requires a spine. Now, the question is whether anyone is paying attention at the league headquarters, or if they are too busy figuring out how much to punish her for being accurate. As a result, one bench guard using a microphone carried out the league's marketing and criticized its officials more successfully than others who received compensation for it. The question is whether somebody in a position of responsibility is taking notice. What do you think? Is music inappropriate, or is Sophie right? Tell me in the comments. For other information, click the like and subscribe buttons.